Dear students, previously we considered measurement of length. Now let us consider measurement of mass. Mass is a basic property of matter. It doesn't depend on temperature, pressure or location of the object in space. What does it mean? It doesn't depend on temperature. It means what? Suppose in the winter season, we have temperature 20 degrees centigrade. And when summer season comes, the temperature will be around 30 to 35 degrees centigrade. There is increase in temperature. And there is a weight stone in a grocery shop. If you see, if temperature increases, see that 1 kg stone is there. Does its mass changes because of rise in temperature? No. If temperature rises, volume increases. Mass doesn't change. Next, pressure. See, we are on surface of earth and we are under atmospheric pressure, and the atmospheric pressure may change from time to time, but the mass of the stone doesn't change. If you take a solid, for example, suppose this is a metal slab. This is a metal slab. If you apply large pressure on this, then its volume, the decrease in its volume will be negligibly small. The decrease in its volume will be negligibly small. So, because of pressure also, see what happen, its volume may change. If you apply, again you see, if you apply pressure, its volume decreases, but mass doesn't change. Next, location. That mass stone, whether it is in India or in any other foreign country, its mass will be same. On surface of earth, it will be same anywhere, not only on surface of earth. You carry the 1 kg mass stone to the surface of moon, there also its mass will be 1 kg. Mass of a body will remain same anywhere in the universe. So now you may doubt a bit. What is that? See, if I am 60 kg on earth surface, I will be only 10 kg on surface of moon. Somebody told me. That is wrong. See, what is your, see, the word weight is mistakenly used in our spoken language. You say my weight is some 50 kg, but that is not weight, that is your mass. Suppose you have measured and you should not say my weight is 50 kg. You should say your mass is 50 kg. Your mass is 50 kg. This is right. And this mass will be same anywhere in the universe. Your mass 50 kg will be same on surface of earth, on surface of moon, on surface of any planet, anywhere. What changes is your weight changes. What is the weight? How weight is defined? Weight is defined as gravitational force working on you. and the equation is W is equal to mg. Suppose your mass is 50 kg and G value is actually 9.8, but let us take 10, then you get 500 newtons. 500 newtons of gravitational force is working on you. Therefore, your weight is 500 Newton. Your load is 500 Newton. And this weight changes with location. This weight changes with location. Suppose here your mass is 60 kg, then the weight will be 600 Newton. And this is on earth. Suppose this is on earth. If you go to moon, it will be 1/6. It will be 1/6. So there your weight will be 100 newtons only. So from place to place weight changes. So actually see, you look at the formula, mass doesn't change. G value changes. G value on moon is 1/6 of that on earth. Okay. So next, the SI unit of mass is kilogram. That you know. The prototypes of the International Standard Kilogram supplied by the International Bureau of Weights and Measures. See, this is in Sèvres, in Paris, that is in France. So they have supplied prototypes of the kg blocks to all countries, and the kg blocks are made of 90% platinum and 10% iridium. The International Bureau of Weights and Measures kept a prototype made of platinum, iridium, 90% platinum, 10% iridium. So it is a mixture of the two metals called alloy. It is kept at Sèvres near Paris of France. The mass of this international prototype is taken as 1 kg. So such prototypes are supplied to all countries around in the world. And our prototype of that international standard 1 kg is kept in National Physical Laboratory, NPL, New Delhi. Okay, while dealing with so as far as our daily items are concerned, that kg stone is okay. Now while dealing with atoms and molecules, the kilogram is an inconvenient unit. In this case, there is an important standard unit of mass called Unified Atomic Mass Unit. So to measure mass of atoms and molecules, now we are going to define another unit, and that is one unified atomic mass unit. And this one unified atomic mass unit is written as 1U. This is written as 1U. 1U, and it is defined as 1/12 of C612. That is carbon atom. Carbon atom has atomic number 6, but mass number, there are different mass numbers are there. Same atomic number, there are carbon elements with the same atomic number and with different mass numbers. such elements are called isotopes. So there are several isotopes to the carbon element. So out of those we choose an element with 12 mass number, and we define the unified atomic mass unit as 1 by 12th of this mass number. So 1 by 12 into 12 you get 12 gets cancelled, you get 1. So in this way unified atomic mass number is defined. And this unified atomic mass number is expressed in terms of kilograms also, and the value is 1.66 into 10 power minus 27 kg. Most of commonly available objects can be determined by a common balance, like the one used in a grocery shop. See, in a grocery shop, he measures the mass of the objects we select with the help of common balance only, that you know. Large masses in the universe, like planets, stars, etc., based on Newton's law of gravitation, can be measured by using gravitational method. Okay, now our interest is to measure larger masses. You want to measure mass of Earth, mass of other planets, mass of Sun, and mass of other stars. You want to measure masses of celestial objects. How? So you can determine these larger masses making use of Newton's universal law of gravitation. Suppose you want to measure mass of Earth. Now, see, this is your Earth. On surface of Earth, an object of mass small m is kept. And this is the radius of Earth. And mass of Earth is capital M. Now, according to Newton's law of gravitation, according to Newton's universal law of gravitation, the force of attraction between Earth and this object is equal to capital G, this mass and object mass, divided by the distance between the two objects. We may take distance from center of one object to center of another object. So this is the center of Earth, this is center of the object. Now you should consider this distance also, but compared to Earth radius, this is negligible. So if you consider Earth radius, that is enough. This you need not consider. So here distance square. So this is equation 1. We have 3 laws of motion, Newton's laws of motion, first law, second law, third law. According to Newton's second law, the force of attraction of Earth on that object is given by, see, the gravitational force produces an acceleration in the object, no? And Newton's second law, what is the Newton's second law? F is equal to ma. But here, instead of a, you write mg. Why? Because of Earth gravitational force, the acceleration produced is known as acceleration due to gravity, and that is represented by g. Okay, according to Newton's second law, this much force is working on the object. So whether you apply Newton's universal law of gravitation or Newton's second law, both stand for the force of attraction between the two objects only. Both indicate same force. It means LHS is equal. If LHS is equal, RH is also equal. Therefore, you can write. Small m gets cancelled. Now capital M is equal to g r square by capital G. Small g value we know, earth radius we know, capital G value we know. Substituting the known values, you can obtain the mass of the earth. So in this way we can find mass of the celestial objects. For measurement of small masses of atomic, subatomic particles, see here we considered large or very large masses. Now we are going to consider very small masses. For measurement of small masses of atomic, subatomic particles, etc., we make use of mass spectrograph, in which the radius of the trajectory is proportional to the mass of a charged particle moving in uniform electric and magnetic fields. Now we want to measure very small masses, masses of atoms, molecules, electrons, protons. Using mass spectrograph method, that particle must be a charged particle. A neutral particle won't work. If you want to use mass spectrograph method, the particle whose mass you want to determine, that particle should be a charged particle. That's why I wrote here electrons. These are negatively charged particle. So you can find the mass of electrons using this method. Protons, these are positively charged particles. So you can find the mass of a proton. Next, what about atoms? These are electrically neutral, and an atom's mass cannot be determined using mass spectrograph method because they are not carrying and they are not charged particle. So what we do? Atoms are converted to ions by ionizing them. It is very easy to ionize an atom. Say for example, if you take sodium atom, it is ready to lose an electron, and losing an electron it becomes a positively charged ion, positive ion it becomes. And gaining the electron, a chlorine atom becomes chloride ion. So in this way, first you must convert an atom into ion. Now this is a charged particle. This is a charged particle. So these charge, now you can find their mass. Now you can find their mass. Okay, how we find mass of a charged particle? See the mechanism. See, for simplicity, let us choose electron. Here you can see a filament. We supply electrical energy. Gaining the electrical energy, the electrons are released from the filament. And these electrons are attracted by anode. Why anode attracts them? Because the anode plate is connected to positive electrode of a battery. That's why this anode plate is attracting the electron. With what force it attracts, that you can calculate. See here you have applied high tension potential difference, 10,000 volts, very large potential difference. How potential difference is defined? Work by charge. See, you don't worry about this. You get this in your second year. In PUC second year, you have this. The potential difference between cathode and anode plates is, say, V. That is also called as voltage. Work. Charge on electron is shown by E. So from this you can write W is equal to E into V. So this much work is done on the electron, and work done is converted into energy. Here the work done, the electrical work done is converted into kinetic energy. That's why the electron is running towards anode. So here I can write work done is equal to kinetic energy. Work done is EV. Kinetic energy is half mv square, or v square is equal to 2e capital V by m. This is one equation. Now the accelerated electron is coming out. See, to this anode plate one hole is made, and through this hole the accelerated electron comes out. With what velocity it came out? With v velocity it came out. So on that we are applying a magnetic field of intensity B. And in which direction we are applying the magnetic field? We are applying the magnetic field perpendicular to the velocity vector. Perpendicular to the velocity vector. So then what happens? When a charged particle is moving in magnetic field, that magnetic field exerts a deflecting force on the electron. The magnetic field exerts a deflecting force on the electron. It tries to deflect the electron. In which direction? That is given by Fleming's left hand rule, and according to that rule it is deflected in this direction. So velocity vector is horizontally to right hand side, and magnetic force working on that is vertically downward. So because of the magnetic force, the electron describes a circle. Why it should describe a circle? The reason is the magnetic force behaves like a centripetal force. We can give several examples for centripetal force. Suppose our earth is there, and around earth moon is moving in a circular orbit with certain velocity, and our earth is attracting the moon towards its center, and this force is called as gravitational force. Here the centripetal force is gravitational force. Centripetal force means force working towards center of a circle, that's all. Here the centripetal force is gravitational force. Here the centripetal force is magnetic force. And when the force is at 90 degrees to the velocity vector, that object describes a circle. Here also happens the same thing. And here the radius of the circle is smaller. Okay. So in this case the centripetal force is magnetic force. Let me write that. What is the formula for centripetal force? mv square by r. What is the formula for magnetic force? Actually, the magnetic force is Fm is equal to QVB. But charge, see, Q means charge on the charged particle. Here the charge on the electron is represented by E. Therefore, I write here in place of Q, I write E. So, E, V, B. Here one V gets cancelled. Now, from this, R is equal to mv by EB. I derived expression for radius of the circle. Here, velocity of the electron, it is a constant. Charge on electron, constant. Magnetic field applied, the strength of the magnetic field applied, constant. So, now what is remaining here? Mass. Here, radius. So, this is in numerator, this is in numerator. So, there exists a direct proportionality between the two physical quantities. So, this equation tells you that R is directly proportional to M. And the same thing is written in our textbook. So, let me read once here. We make use of mass spectrograph in which radius of the trajectory is proportional to the mass of a charged particle moving in uniform electric and magnetic fields. Now, see, this is second equation. So, let me write it neatly. R is equal to mv by EB. mv by EB. Now, squaring on both sides, or squaring on both sides, you get R square is equal to m square v square by e square b square, or v square is equal to b square e square r square divided by m square. This is second equation. Let us substitute this value in first equation. Here in place of v square, let us substitute this value. b square e square r square by m square is equal to 2EV by m. Here 1m gets cancelled. Here 1e gets cancelled. Take this m that side, 2v this side. From this you get m is equal to b square e r square by 2v. B value we know, charge on electron we know, radius of the trajectory can be measured, potential difference we know. Substituting all the known values, we can find mass of the charged particle. See, we did all this derivation out of interest. As far as our syllabus is concerned, this is not required. Only out of interest we measured. Okay. Our next topic is range of masses. Here a table is given. We will be considering very lowest mass and very highest mass. Very interesting. You please look at the table 2.4 on page number 22. Range and order of masses. Electron 10 power minus 30, proton 10 power minus 27, uranium atom 10 power minus 25. So these are the lowest masses, and as you move downwards, the mass is increasing. And here when you come to the moon, 10 power 23, earth 10 power 25, sun 10 power 30, Milky Way 10 power 41, observable universe 10 power 55. See, this is the range from lowest value to highest value. But one small doubt let me share with you. Somewhere I have seen mass of electron 9.1 into 10 to the power of minus 31 kg. But here it is given as 10 power minus 30. Just order is given here. The exact value not given order. Even though see here we get that value. How? See 9.1 means it is almost 10. This can be taken as 10. 10 means 10 power 1. So 1 minus 31, we get 10 power minus 30. So like this. Our next topic is measurement of time. We considered measurement of length, measurement of mass, and third fundamental physical quantity, time. So far, what apparatus, what devices we used to find time period. In olden days, wall clocks made of pendulum were used. Simple pendulum like this, length. As far as simple pendulum is concerned, the time period, there is an expression T is equal to 2 pi root L by G. This was made of a metal, and when summer season comes, its length, see, it expands, its length increases. When length increases, time period also increases. In that way, change in time was noticed. The pendulum clocks did not give same time in all seasons. And we used spring clocks also. There were two types, see, table clocks and wrist watches. Here what we used? We used to wind the spring. So in doing so, the spring, it was wound like this. After giving a key to that, it is left to unwind. When you are winding, it is given potential energy, and afterwards gradually it starts unwinding. The potential energy is converted into kinetic energy, moving the hours hand, minutes hand, and seconds hand. That was one phenomenon. In that way, some years we used the spring clocks. But the springs are also made of metals, and they too, their parameters also change. Their parameters are subjected to several factors. They change. So they too did not give accurate time. Afterwards, now we are using quartz clocks. These clocks may make use of a quartz crystal. and now we are having very accurate time. And the quartz clocks work on a phenomenon of piezoelectric effect. Piezoelectric effect. Very interesting. See, actually, we need not study the piezoelectric effect here. I am just telling you because you are interested, that's all. Suppose this is quartz crystal, and to its both sides, two metal plates are covered. Top surface and bottom surface is covered with a metal surface, metal plate. And if you apply this to a variable source, variable voltage, very small voltage but changing voltage, if you apply, then what happens? The quartz crystal starts vibrating. The quartz crystal starts vibrating. So this is the piezoelectric effect, and its converse also true. What can be its? See here, you may ask. See, I am using quartz watch, but I am not using variable voltage source. Every year I put one small button size battery cell, and it gives DC voltage. No, sir. Yes, we use a small button size battery and it gives DC voltage, but inside your watch an oscillator circuit will be there, and that particular circuit converts the constant DC voltage into varying AC voltage, and that varying AC voltage is applied to your quartz crystal. And because of the fluctuations in the voltage, our crystal starts vibrating. This is also a sort of kinetic energy. See here in the spring clock, what we did, the during winding, we supplied potential energy, and that potential energy converted into kinetic energy, moving the hour and minutes and seconds. And just like that, here also the vibrations are used in working the watch. Now, next clock is cesium clock. It is also called atomic clock, but we don't use this clock. See, these are used by the scientists performing research because they need the measurement of accurate time period. And our SI unit, the SI unit for time period is second, and this second is defined based on our atomic clock only. Shall we see how it is defined? Before going to that, let us know some basics about the atomic clock also. Before going to that cesium clock, so cesium is just an atom. Let us know how an atom is, how is its anatomy. You all know very well. You take any atom, it consists of a nucleus, and the nucleus is surrounded by various orbits, and in the orbit the electrons will be revolving. Inside the nucleus, protons and neutrons will be there. And you know very well, sometimes the electrons makes transition from one orbit to another orbit. If an electron makes a transition from this orbit to this orbit, see, as long as the electron is moving in this orbit, its energy is 5 electron volts. as long as this electron is moving in this orbit, its energy is say some 3 electron volts. If an electron jumps from this level to this level, what happens? See, as long as this is in this orbit, 5 electron volts of energy is required. But when it comes to the lower orbit, this much energy is not required. To stay in this orbit, just 3 electron volts is enough. So now it is having some excess energy now. How much excess energy? 5 minus 3, 2 electron volts. So this much excess energy is not required, therefore it gives away. The electron losing this much excess energy to the surroundings, it comes to the lower orbit. So in which form it loses the energy? In which form? It loses the energy in the form of radiation. It loses the energy in the form of radiation, and it comes to the lower orbit. I am showing the electromagnetic radiation, the same electromagnetic radiation emitted when electron came from higher orbit to lower orbit. I am showing here. So here you know very well, this is a crest, this is a trough. One crest, one trough makes one wave. So here to here one wave, crest, trough, 2 waves, crest, trough, 3 waves. So in this diagram I am showing 3 waves, or you can say 3 oscillations, or you can say 3 vibrations. 3 vibrations. Okay. So in certain amount of time, 3 vibrations came out like that. Now let us see here. In the cesium atomic clock, the second is taken as the time needed for 9192631770 vibrations of the radiation corresponding to the transition between the two hyperfine levels of the ground state of cesium-133 atom. Now, suppose if this is cesium atom, in 1 second, if an electron makes a transition from one hyperfine level to another hyper level, in 1 second time, so many number of vibrations. See here I have shown just 3 vibrations. So many number of vibrations come out just in 1 second. And in this way, the SI unit second is defined. How we define second? The time taken for so many number of vibrations to come out is called as 1 second. 1 second is defined as time taken for so many number of vibrations of radiation to be released from cesium-133 atom when electron makes a transition from one hyperfine level to another hyperfine level. In this way, second is defined. And why we prefer the cesium atoms means the cesium atomic clocks are very accurate. The cesium atomic clocks are very accurate. In principle, they provide portable standard. The national standard of time interval second as well as the frequency is maintained through 4 cesium atomic clocks. A cesium atomic clock is used at the National Physical Laboratory, New Delhi, to maintain the Indian standard of time. Now, let us consider uncertainty or accuracy of the atomic clock. It is plus or minus 1 into 10 power minus 13. That is 1 part in 10 power 13. It means it may lose or gain no more than 3 microseconds in 1 year. 3 microseconds means 3 into 10 power minus 6 seconds. So, in 1 year time, in 1 year, that is 365 1 by 4 days of time, in 1 year time, the clock may lose or gain just 3 microseconds. That much accurate is the atomic clock. Next, let us see the range of time. We measured time periods for several events. Just let us consider the lowest time period and highest time period. A table is given. Let us look at the table. Range and order of time intervals. Lifespan of most unstable particle. See how much that 10 power minus 24. 10 power minus 24. Highest age of the universe 10 power 70. Now let us take a ratio of these two. 10 power 17 by 10 power minus 24, that is equal to 10 power 17 plus 24, and that is equal to 10 power 41. 10 power 41. Now let us consider range of length also. Here a table is given. Range and order of lengths. Size of a proton 10 power minus 15. Distance to the boundary of the observable universe, that is diameter of observable universe 10 power 26. I wrote here lowest value, highest value. I have taken the ratio. I got 10 power 41. The same value. See whether it is a coincidence or is there any relation, that we don't know. But one thing, the formula we generally use for distance. See, distance is defined as speed into time. Distance or length both are same. So length is equal to velocity into time. Here light is traveling with a constant velocity. Light is traveling with a constant velocity. That's why the ratio of the minimum maximum distance and the ratio of the minimum maximum time period is that because of this we are getting the same value, but it is to be determined, but coincidentally the ratio is same.